Hello and welcome to Warcraft Daily for today, the 14th of September 2013. So, in today's news we have an interview with Ion Hazzokostas on game design and a few other things. I'm going to cover most of it, and it was by a fellow YouTuber, and I will give you links and stuff in a minute. There's also been some changes to the flex system, and a whole bunch of Siege of Orgrimmar hotfixes, as well as one very, very nice change to those of you who are looking to get a certain achievement. So, let's get into it. Now, the interview was with Qelric, whose channel I will link somewhere on the screen. There's also an article available on ZAM, which I will throw in the description. But now, let's get on to just some of the sort of initial topics and things I want to talk about. You know, I don't want to use the entire interview because that would be a little bit mean. Now, let's get on to it. So, they say that Battlefield Barons was a successful experiment. Not perfect, but successful. They see a lot more of that sort of design, well, we see a lot more of that sort of design in the Timeless Isle. Now, I think that sort of as we go on, the Timeless Isle, it does have its problems. It's not perfect, let's all think that, I think. But I think they will nail down that design. Right now, I think a little bit of a problem with the Timeless Isle is, like, maybe another daily, other than Path of the Mistwalker, or maybe another sort of quest line, or another thing to hunt down, or another kind of treasure to find that counts towards something, perhaps, that's more than an achievement. I think that would be nice. But in principle, I think it's far better than, say, the Thunder Isle, because the Thunder Isle really, you hit Honored or Exalted or whatever, and you just kind of stopped. And there was no fun gameplay there. Now, let's move on to some other things. They said, and this is like actually a recent quote, that at some point we will be getting monthly content patches. Now, we talked about this, saying that there's not going to be like a new dungeon or raid every month, because frankly it would be absurd and players would be overwhelmed. But they prefer the idea of just having new content every month for players to explore and discover. And from his tone, it sounded a little bit more like this was the kind of thing they wanted to fit inside the current patch cycle. And I think that would be nice, because say if you had like the Timeless Isles come out, and then, alright, people are enjoying the Isles, they're enjoying the raid, but after 3 weeks, are people still enjoying the Isle fully? No, they're not. So we add in another little bit of content, another little bit of content, and at the end of the day, this is a game with a monthly subscription. What do they want to do? They want to keep people interested from month to month. And I think that would be the perfect way to do it, and it means we get more content. I'll be subscribed anyway because I raid, so hey, I'm happy with it. Now, also, they said they've tried over multiple iterations to get dailies right, but ultimately they just don't think the old model can work. I think there's only so many ways that you can dress up the idea of doing the same thing every day. Like the whole thing where they thought perhaps having 4, 5, 6 different possible hubs and only getting 3, maybe they thought that was interesting. Maybe, but after 2 days, or 3 days, or 4 days, you've got all of them, and every single one is you just going and clicking on the thing and saying, oh, well, I wonder what combination they're going to give me today. I hope it's not the shit one. And that's not fun. Now, he also said that the Isle is more of an open-ended thing as opposed to this previous daily thing, and that's just supposed to keep it fresh for longer. I think it will be fresh for longer, but you will spend less time in it, so you'll probably jump in for 20 minutes every day, instead of, say, doing an hour of dailies every day just to get your rep. I think overall, like I'd rather do 20-30 minutes a day over an entire over an entire patch, than burning myself out in a week on something that's not that interesting or engaging. Now, Siege of Orgrimmar heirlooms. Here's another thing we talked about. He was describing about pretty much where they slot in. So he said they're really a new type of item. They're not a legendary, and they're not an epic. Of course, they're an heirloom, but they don't really have the same use case as the previous heirlooms. They're not like, they do like the idea of the loot being useful in the current patch, and the current tier, all that stuff, but also for a little while more, or in this case, into parts of the next expansion. Because honestly, if this scales the way up to level 100, then at level 100 maybe this will be the equivalent of, maybe not an epic weapon, I think that might be a little bit too powerful, but say just under an epic weapon, and it would be very nice for people, just, you know, throw them a bit of a bone for putting in the effort to kill Qelric. They also said it was a little bit of an incentive to get people into flexes and normals. I think that's fair, and the reason I say this is because at the end of the day, flex is something which will be puckable in a few weeks' time. That's nearly a definite, maybe a few months, a few weeks, whatever, something like that. And I really think that the fundamental idea of this is that in LFR you can get burned out of LFR because maybe it's not engaging enough with the difficulty level, or perhaps you're getting, you know, annoyed at other players doing things which you don't agree with, say, you know, standing in the fire, pulling all the trash, that kind of thing. Well, I think that because Flex has inherently less of this, especially if you're doing it with a team, but also if you're pugging it, and especially pugging it using something such as Open Raid, which will get you a pretty organized group, I think that's more sustainable content. It's going to lead to less burnout, and the more that they push people into that, and when I say push, I mean more suggest, hey, this is kind of cool, and there's a thing you can get for it that's not necessary, but it's nice. I think that's the right way to do it. Now, also, and the last point I'm going to touch on, they said that the new heroic dungeons doing new heroic dungeons presents a little bit of a problem, because people expect it to have better gear, which certainly makes sense, because it's coming in a patch or two later. Now, this pretty much means that the old tier is, or the old kind of tier of, heroics, so say, if you had Zul'Aman, Zul'Grub in comparison to the normal Cataclysm ones, the old tier is useless. And they weren't thrilled about how this happened with Zul'Aman and Zul'Grub, in that essentially 2 dungeons replaced 6 or 7 or 8. And that was a big problem, because people were then doing Zul'Aman, Zul'Grub constantly, which wasn't cool. Also, they said that the Dragon Soul raids suffered for it, no new environments, other than, say, Deathwing's Back, which was a bit of a problem, because really the artists and stuff, they were busy making the 5-mans, and that led to a really bad raid, and that tier... that tier had a lot of issues with people, I suppose. So, there you go, there's that. Honestly, I think that the idea of new, harder 5-mans is good, and the best way I think to do them is probably similar to how they did ICC. The ICC ones, they were substantially harder than the default ones, especially on heroic mode. They required a pretty good level of coordination. I think if you could do that, maybe if they were non-queuable or something, you'd actually have to get people that, that are good in this sort of heroic scenario way. I'm not really sure, but I think the only way to do this properly is to add them in and have them actually be pretty hard, and have difficulty that properly justifies the rewards. And also, they do need to have a little bit of an entrance requirement, so that people with absolutely, crap gear, whatever, can't just start zerging these and bring down all the other groups that try them. So, there you go, that's my thoughts on this. Now, they've changed the flexible raid system. It's only been a few days, but hey, it's changed, so it now starts at the raid leaders progression. So, if this is actually completely contrary to what I said yesterday, because that's literally how quick they changed it. If you've killed a boss before, let's just say the raid leader has cleared 3 out of 14, and the rest of the raid has cleared 5 out of 14. Well, you go in, and because the raid leader's only killed 3 out of 14, that's where your raid will start. This means it's a bit more, it's a more flexible thing. And also, if you're repeating a boss, so say you're one of those people that's killed the 5, but your raid leader's only killed 3, then you'll still be able to get 25 Valor points and a bonus roll from doing those bosses again, which I think is fair, because it doesn't mean that people are completely boned from their choice of raid leader. So I guess, hey, it's more flexible. What's the name of the system? Flexible raiding. What should it be? Flexible. It's all good. Now, let's talk about some hotfixes. So, the first thing I'm going to talk about is a whole bunch of very nice Timeless Isle ones. By a whole bunch, I mean one, because, I can't even English. So, the Firewatcher achievement now requires you to obtain 2,000 bloody coins, which is quite good. Now, this used to obtain 10,000, or used to require you to get 10,000, which meant you had to kill 10,000 players on the Isle. Now, in case you can't maths, 10,000 is a very big number, and that would take a very long time. It was frankly ridiculous. I mean, it was 4 times more than the epic mount that was supposed to be one of the ultimate rewards. So, there you go, for getting that achievement, and I think it's the Emissary of Ordos, title thing. That's now easier, so hey, good stuff. Let's talk about the, just finish off the show with some talk about the raid changes. So, Nurashen, Purifying Lights now always spawn on the same location in Flex. Damage from the Titanic Corruption's Hurl Corruption ability has been, can now be absorbed by Absorption Shields. That's very nice and should have been there in the start, so good hotfix. Also, Shav Pride, they fixed an issue where players were able to obtain a second Titan Runestone from the Shav Pride after already having killed them once on a different difficulty setting. Well, if I could actually get to the Shav Pride on Flex, I would have been happy to exploit that, but since I didn't, I couldn't. Let's talk about Galakras. The flames of Galakrond are now more responsive in detecting when it passes through a player, and provides clear visual feedback as the flames decrease in severity. From what I hear about Qelric, this is very good. Now this is a bit of a funny one. Lorthamar, Thrawn, and King Varian Rin will no longer use Taunt on Qelric. Now part of this fight is that there's NPCs. Okay, fair enough. And a part of the first phase is that you need to keep, say, Lorthamar or Varian alive by keeping ads off them. Now obviously, it's a little bit of a problem when they're tanking the raid boss, and that can get them killed and mess up your tank's rotations and stuff like that, so good change. Now, we'll get through the rest quickly. For the spoils of Pandaria, they have reduced the delay before crates of Pandaren relics can be opened on normal flex and heroic. For Malkorok will now correctly apply fatal strikes on a tank even if they have successfully dodged his melee attack. Also, the Corcoran Warwolf's Dread Howl will work like a normal fear and can be removed or dispelled by non-self-cast abilities. Self-cast abilities like Berserker Rage or Will the Forsaken do not work and will be addressed in a future patch. Also, Mistweaver monks start stunned with the Touch of Yasharaj, or Yasharaj, that's probably the right way to say it. Affliction will no longer be impossible to hit due to dematerialize. Next, Throk the Bloodthirsty. Apparently this boss was a little bit broken because of this, and they have fixed an issue where players were still taking damage for creatures that were locked up in their cage. Pretty much, I think that was a big wiping thing. Also for Grosh Hellscream, Faith, Hope, and Courage effects no longer stack with each other while in the realm of Yasharaj. Ah, there we go. Hotfixes are always fun to rattle off, but I know that I have plenty of people listening that are both, LFR, normal, and flex raiders, so it's probably good just to cover those things so that you're aware for your next raid. And that's really it for today's show. Now, a little thing I have to say before the end. I will be, yes, I'll be away from tomorrow from about 10 AM to 5, 6, maybe 7. So the plan is I'm going to have some stuff like pre-recorded, probably Hearthstone, something like that, throw it up on the channel, maybe stick up a guide that's pre-done, and yeah, leave it at that. But, well, I don't know, there probably won't be Warcraft Daily. Another thing I need to say is the usual Sunday schedule. Now, my old subscribers, those who were around when the total was probably around 2,000, will remember a show called The Recap, which I would do at the end of every week. Now, as we got really close to 5.4, there was literally nothing to really talk about on The Recap, so I stopped doing it. Well, it's probably about time we start doing The Recap again, and I think it would be nice for all the new subs to get a taste of that show as well. So, The Recap may not happen tomorrow, it may happen on Monday. One of those 2 days, it should be there. But anyway, enough of my rambling. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe. And with that, I'll see you next time.